Davy Crockett's heroism and bravery during a pivotal moment in American history has made him an enduring symbol of the Old West, and his legacy continues to be celebrated today. But what really happened to Crockett during the Battle of the Alamo? Was he the fearless warrior that legend has made him out to be? Did he go down fighting to his last breath? Or did this legend of the West have a different outcome than the one we've been told? While his death is shadowed in mystery and intense debate, what we do know about Davy Crockett helps solidify him as America's most famous frontiersman. Davy Crockett was born in Tennessee in 1786, which at the time was America's frontier. Although it's unlikely that he killed a bear at the age of 3, his time on the frontier helped him gain the skills of being a proficient shooter and hunter. In his own autobiography, Crockett claimed that he culled 105 bears in a single hunting season. His experience as a frontiersman would come in handy when Crockett joined the Tennessee militia to assist in the Creek War. This was a war fought against the Red Sticks, a faction of Creek Indians who had attacked American settlers at Fort Mims, Alabama. Davy enlisted for 90 days as a scout and a hunter. Upon completion of his 90 days, Crockett enlisted once more to participate in the War of 1812, which was happening at the same time as the Creek War. After his service, Davy Crockett decided to start a career in politics. He was first elected into the Tennessee General Assembly and then into the House of Representatives. He quickly gained fame for his folksy persona and advocacy for the poor. He would go on to spend 6 years in Congress, and during that time he did not pass a single bill. After his defeat in the elections of 1835, he stated, quote, "I told the people of my district that I would serve them as faithfully as I had done, but if not, they might go to hell, and I would go to Texas." End quote. And to Texas he went. Crockett arrived in Texas in January 1836 and joined the list of volunteers with the promise that each volunteer would earn 4,600 acres for their service. Crockett arrived at the Alamo in February, just a few weeks before the Mexican army led by General Santa Anna. This is where the story of the Alamo begins. A force of roughly 200 men, including Davy Crockett, were left to defend against a Mexican force of thousands. This is where the great debate of how Davy Crockett actually died begins. While popular films portray Davy Crockett clubbing Mexican soldiers with the butt of his rifle, or with his dying breath igniting powder kegs to take as many soldiers with him, Theodore Roosevelt gives a slightly different version in his book, Hero Tales from American History. Roosevelt writes, quote, "Colonel William Travis, the commander, was among them, and so was James Bowie, who was sick and weak from a wasting disease, but who rallied all his strength to die fighting, and who in the final struggle slew several Mexicans with his revolver, and with his big knife of the kind to which he had given his name. Then these fell too, and the last man stood at bay. It was old Davy Crockett. Wounded in a dozen places, he faced his foes with his back to the wall, ringed around by the bodies of the men he had slain." End quote. Roosevelt wrote, quote, "Crockett fought desperately, beating back Mexican soldiers until none dared close with their lances. They held him at bay until he lost so much blood that he couldn't break through their line. The musketeers then loaded their carbines and shot him down. Santa Anna declined to give him mercy." End quote. While most stories of Davy Crockett's demise focus on him fighting to his last breath, another widely accepted version tells a different story. As told in the newspapers The Morning Courier and New York Enquirer, the fort was carried, quote, 6 Americans were discovered near the wall yet unconquered. They were surrounded and ordered by General Castrillon to surrender, which they did under a promise of protection. One of the 6 stepped forward with a bold demeanor. The troops noticed his firmness and his noble bearing. An undaunted Davy Crockett boldly faced General Santa Anna, looking him steadfastly in the face. Castrillon then said, "Sir, here are 6 prisoners I have taken alive. How shall I dispose of them?" Santa Anna fiercely looked at Castrillon, replying, "Have I not told you before how to dispose of them? Why do you bring them to me?" Following this, several junior officers pulled their swords and lunged at Crockett and the others, plunging their swords into the bosoms of their defenseless prisoners. End quote. The diary of Lieutenant Jose Pena seems to validate this story. In his diary, he writes, quote, "Several officers thrust themselves forward, and with swords in hand fell upon these unfortunate defenseless men just as a tiger leaps upon his prey. Though tortured before they were killed, these unfortunates died without complaining and without humiliating themselves before their torturers." End quote. While Davy Crockett's death is one of great debate, the author of the book, David Crockett, James A. Shackford, states, quote, "Too much has been made over the details of how David died at the Alamo. Such details are not important. What is important is that he died as he had lived. His life was one of indomitable bravery. His death was a death of intrepid courage. His life was one of wholehearted dedication to his concepts of liberty. He died staking his life against what he regarded as intolerable tyranny." End quote.